Last night, I uploaded a first impression video on Super Mario Bros. Wonder. I emphasized how high quality the game was. I emphasized that it was a major release. I emphasized like all of its like immediate positive qualities. Now that I finished the game, now that I've experienced like everything the game has to offer, the final stage, the amazing final boss, seeing just how much more there is to do when like uncovering all the levels I didn't play, getting all the wonder seeds, this game I'm sure is going to have a solid 20, 25 hours out of it, right? You know, I loved every minute of it, right? Like every moment until the credits rolled was like jam-packed with fun, creative, innovative gameplay elements, right? To the point where I honestly don't think the game really reuses its enemy designs or its concepts like more than a couple of times, right? Like hoppos, the hippos that you bounce off of that are like little beach ball like rolling things. Yeah, I feel like I only saw those things once. Mamas, they have like a designated stage all to themselves, right? You have unique level themes, great world designs, a great variety in stages, a really cool upgrade system where you can unlock new badges that give you wild new power ups, including a Spider Man Vine thing that makes this game the better Spider Man game released on October 20th, 2023. You have a lot of really oddball decisions, like not having bosses for every world. But that improves the pacing. It stops things from being repetitive, and instead of necessarily getting a boss, you get like an interesting like final area with a unique theme and just like exploring some big castle, which in and of itself comes off like a boss level, right? Like you don't necessarily need a boss for every single world, right? Like it improves the pacing, right? That was a problem that I think New Super Mario Bros. Had, is that like we kept getting these Koopa Link fights over and over and over again with like not a lot of variety, with simplicity and just like playing this game. Okay, like thinking back to all my years of playing like the new Super Mario Bros. Games, the original NES trilogy, Super Mario World, Super Mario Land, even the 3D games, 64 Sunshine Galaxy, Galaxy 2, Odyssey. I said last night that like Mario Wonder was better than Odyssey. I would like to expand that claim into saying that like Mario Wonder is the best 2D Mario game ever made, right? When it comes to like stuff like the 3D stuff, I feel like that almost should be considered its own thing at this point. So I feel like whether you prefer 2D Mario to 3D Mario is mostly up to preference, but I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that, like, yeah, I think Mario Wonder is better than all of that too, right? This is an incredibly addicting experience. This is something that's wild, inventive, fun, jam-packed with so much intense action that I am sure that this will be a beloved classic for years to come, right? Like this is an incredibly inventive title that I think has really demonstrated that the new generation at Nintendo really know how to take Mario to the next level. Like I was looking at these credits and I'm getting the same vibes I got like 10 years ago when I played Skyward Sword for the first time and noticed like Fujibayoshi's name in the credits, right? The man who would go on to direct Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, two of the best Zelda games ever made. I'm sensing a lot of the same energy here. Like we're at the point now where a lot of the old guard are retiring. Anoma's talking about stepping down. Miyamoto's not going to be around for much longer. We have a new president. Well, new. He's been around for a while now. We have like a lot of these like board members. Splatoon exists. Like we're getting new IPs. Reinventing old ones. Like games don't necessarily feel like they used to, right? Like this is a new era for Nintendo, and I've been saying this for a long time. As early as like Arms, right? Like as early as like when Iwata unfortunately passed away. Like this was a turning point for the company. This is like the new golden era for Nintendo, right? This is the most popular they've ever been, and the most with the most popular console they've ever been, with like well-established brands that are constantly innovating and just doubling down on just what makes them enjoyable and fun to their audience. To the audience, right? And playing something like Super Mario Bros. Wonder, like seeing like how this game was like initially dismissed by so many people, is still being dismissed by a significant chunk of the gamer population, right? Like I'm seeing a lot of people like complaining about the difficulty and like the length of the game, and that's not necessarily untrue. But like I think it doesn't really matter. Like I was as much as I breezed through this game, like I enjoyed every moment of it. Like it was an incredible experience going through this game, and I don't think there's any denying that certain segments, like especially the final boss, are some of the most difficult we've ever seen in a 2D Mario game. Right? In that capacity, I don't think a single final boss has as much going on, is as creative, and as innovative as like the final boss for the game. Right? Like it does feel like a much more intense final boss than we've ever gotten from any other Mario game, right? When you compare it to 64, like what do? Just throw Bowser 3 times? Like, not a big deal. Like Mario World, like just throw a Mech Koopa. Like, I'm not knocking those fights at all, right? I love those fights, but I am emphasizing very strongly that in a lot of ways, Mario Wonder is better than the stuff we've gotten before. They really, really managed to reinvent Mario, 2D Mario, in such a way that I have no doubt in my mind that the Mario brand is in extremely good hands. And considering how popular Odyssey turned out being, I'm sure like that still has like its legions of fans. I wasn't crazy about Odyssey, right? Like this is like I've been very vocal about how I think like Odyssey was kind of underwhelming. I kind of saw it as like a spiritual successor to Sunshine in a lot of ways. In spite of all of its positive aspects, it probably has the best boss fights in any Mario game ever. Like I liked the return to form with like the 3D open and collectathon aspects. Like there are plenty of things to love about Super Mario Odyssey. But like at the end of the day, I felt that it was too long, too padded. So many moons were filler, right? Like it just was a complete slog to 100%. Like to the point where I honestly like have never bothered to do it, right? Like I had some very, very real problems with Mario Odyssey to the point where I doubt it's gonna like even crack my top 50 like Nintendo Switch games list when we finally get around to making one at the end of the generation, like 5 years from now. Like when I compare Super Mario Bros. Wonder to Odyssey, like the differences in how I experience these games like really make themselves evident. Like I played Mario Wonder obsessively until I beat it. I beat that game a couple of hours ago, and I'm already thinking about going back to it and doing more stuff in it and like collecting everything in it. And that is like I never felt that way about Odyssey, right? Like when I tried to do it in Odyssey, like it felt kind of like an obligation. I'm just like, okay, there's all this stuff I need to do, like do this, do this, do this, and this. And like it felt like work, honestly. It felt boring a lot of times, like tracking down all these moons. But like Wonder has such good pacing, right? And I do think that's a big reason why a lot of people might actually put this as their game of the year for 2023, because unlike Tears of the Kingdom, which takes a long time to get going, to the point where I doubt that like most people who have finished the game have like really experienced everything the game has to offer. Like unlike Tears of the Kingdom, like Mario Wonder like starts off at like a full like F-Zero like sprint, right? You know how in F-Zero you're going at like the speed of sound? Like that's exactly what this game is like. It is you're going all these crazy adventures, all this stuff is happening, wild stuff right out of the gate. Singing piranha plants, giant herds of buffalo charging that you have to like ride on. You have like giant missiles that you have like become fireworks shows. You turn into different enemies, one with a high jump, one that can cling onto walls with really good like creative level design that really incorporates their unique abilities. You have, really well hidden secrets. You have great stages. You have this game that in a lot of ways will probably be endlessly replayable because it is a multiplayer game. This is something you can bring and show to people, and just have a great time with it, just playing random stages, right? This is probably the closest thing we're going to get to a 3D World 2 until we get that 3D World 2, right? Like I have not had the opportunity to play the game as a multiplayer game yet, but I imagine it's going to be like a wild experience, right? Like if New Super Mario Bros. Wii is any indication with how much I've like how much I loved playing that growing up, like this is going to be like a multiplayer favorite for a very, very, very long time for a lot of people. And I think for a lot of people who have never played a, 2D platformer before, like keep in mind we haven't gotten an original 2D Mario platformer on Switch since like ever, right? Like this is the first 2D Mario game we've gotten since New Super Mario Bros. U, Luigi, if you count the one in 2013, a decade ago, right? So like 11 years, no 2D Mario. This is going to be the first like new 2D Mario game for a lot of people, and I have a very, very hard time believing that this game is not going to make people into a fan of the brand. Like I think a lot of people are coping with this idea that like 2D Mario is outdated, or that like people don't like 2D platformers anymore, or that they can't compete with major 3D open world games like Spider-Man featuring real superheroes. I think people are like really strongly, heavily not understanding just how popular 2D Mario is. Like for a lot of people, like 2D Mario is the first game they play ever. I know a lot of people who played New Super Mario Bros. Like on the DS, like as their first game, right? And have like this very strong like attachment to that game. Like I know people who love these games, who are obsessed with like the NES games, with World, with Island. Like I myself am like that. Even though I've branched off into other series, Donkey Kong Country, Yoshi, Wario Land, like I still love the Mario stuff, right? I myself did not grow up with these older 2D platformer games, right? Like I grew up in the GameCube era. Like if 3D Mario replaced 2D Mario, like I would never have played a 2D Mario game. But I grew up with Sunshine and moved on to New Super Mario Bros. Right, and became a huge fan. Actually, that was the first 2D Mario game I bought when it was new, right? Like everything else was like a re-release or a port, right? So looking at this, right? Looking at like my experiences with the game, looking at like how enthusiastic I am, looking at like how addicted people are. Like I think Demish has released a statement saying he's 100% in the game already, and he's still playing it because he's just that much of a fan. Um, yeah, I'm gonna go on record saying this is probably one of the best 2D platformers ever, right? I think it's better than Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. I think it's better than like the classic Mario games, Mario 3 in particular, because I see a lot of people, old school fans, who are in denial about that. Like, oh, no game will ever be better than Mario 3. World was better than Mario 3, okay? You don't want to admit it, but it is true, right? There have been plenty of games better than Mario 3 over the years. And I understand Mario 3's like popularity and enduring legacy, and I respect it. I love that game, right? Like I love World, but like we really need to as a community really stop trying to act as if like old good and new is bad, right? I've seen a lot of this discourse in regards to a lot of Nintendo games this year, stuff like Fire Emblem Engage, stuff like Advance Wars, Tears of the Kingdom, Pikmin 4. Well, I myself am kind of guilty of this with Pikmin 4 with the claims I've had with this game, right? And like people acting as if like older games like invalidate the existence of the new ones, right? I myself have done this with Pikmin 4, where I've been adamant that like no, I didn't want this. I wanted like a game more like 3, a game more like 1. I really hate the caves. I think the game has been casualized. And those are real, like, valid criticisms to have, I think. But at the end of the day, right, I still reasonably enjoyed Pikmin 4, right? Like, I didn't hate the game. I thought it was a step down from previous entries, but it was a better Pikmin 2, right? I still gave it a shot, right? I still played the game. I still enjoyed it for what it was, right? With Mario Wonder, I feel like a lot of people are in that mindset where like they have to downplay this game in order to like preserve the legacy of the 2D Mario games. But I think people really need to accept that those days like in the 80s, like playing Super Mario Bros. That they're over. They're never coming back. Like that's never going to be like the big new innovative thing again. And I think we're at the point now where we can't necessarily expect people to like play Super Mario Bros. The original as their first platforming game. Just like Donkey Kong has been kind of obscure to younger players, just like how people aren't necessarily playing Super Metroid or old GameCube games anymore. Like the industry has moved on, all right? And I think the boomers in the gaming community. Like they really need to accept that. They need to accept that like not everything is going to be like the old games. And Mario Wonder, I think, is a really good example as to why that needs to happen because this was a game that was unfairly treated by a significant portion of the population who genuinely tried to pass this off as like a mistake and disappointing and as something that like nobody would actually play, but it's shaping up to be one an extremely highly successful, highly popular game release on Nintendo Switch. And, I have absolutely no qualm saying that, like, yes, this is one of the best Mario games ever made, and it is something that I will always stand by and support. This game is an absolute masterpiece, and you should absolutely check it out.